Welcome back for another video. It's a short and sweet video today. I've put together a free hit team for Gameweek 6. But first, let's actually talk about chip strategy. When should you free hit? When should you wildcard? Well, simply put, the free hit should be used whenever your team stands to gain the most from it, which sounds pretty obvious, but it's such a powerful chip and it can easily be wasted if you don't give it enough thought. And its utility is kind of different for each half of the season. Like in the second half of the season, it's generally got a good chance of being best used in a blank or a double game week. In the first half, it's a different story. We probably won't get any double game weeks, maybe a small one. So yeah, this week works great if your team is looking really strong longer term, but perhaps this week you're lacking some players that you'd love to own. You know, for example, Haaland and Foden home to Burnley. Arsenal have got Newcastle that have been the best defence for expected goals conceded. So maybe if you own Karaj, you want to hop off him for 1 week. Maybe you've got 1 or 2 Palace players that are facing Liverpool, etc. So yeah, it's always a nice opportunity to target some really appealing fixtures, shake your team up for a week, maybe take some 1 week punts and then get your team back after. So the wildcard at this stage can let you react to stuff like early season form, you know, maybe rejig your squad if you've got a few players underperforming, maybe you've got some injuries, maybe you've even got some role transfers. You can carry those over on the wildcard and it might be more sensible to use the wildcard and keep the transfers for later. Or perhaps some injuries have crept in, you know, if you've got Palmer, Aina or Sarr, as I say. Gameweek 13 looks like another good week for wildcard, and if you can wait that long. Then Man City have got Leeds and Sunderland home over 3 weeks. Liverpool have also got Sunderland and Leeds as well, home and away. Bournemouth face Sunderland, you know, Palace face Burnley, etc. So there's lots of nice fixtures clumped together around Gameweek 13 if you can make it to then managing your squad. Anyway, let me run you through the team. In goal, there's no massive standout this week. Obviously, Donnarumma's got the best clean sheet odds, but I would rather chase the upside of attackers on a free hit, so we've gone for Sells in goal. An early look at the Gameweek 6 clean sheet odds has got City top 52%, Spurs 40%, and then it's Everton and Forest a couple percent behind, 38%. So Vicario is also a great option for 5.1 mil, as is Pickford. As I say, I'd rather avoid Donnarumma or a City defender. Like Vardy looks great as well, especially on the wildcard, but on a free hit, I would rather chase the upside for 1 week with attackers. So the defence is Tarkowski, Williams and Senesi. Great clean sheet odds for all 3 of these. And all 3 great for defensive contributions, in fact, especially Tarkowski and Senesi. You're probably sick and tired of this stat, but they're the only players that have got a 100% record of hitting defensive contributions so far. He's a huge threat on set pieces, Tarkowski, as well. I put together a set pieces table on Scout just now, and I noticed that West Ham have conceded more headers and goal with 23 than any team this season. Use the link below for 40% off Scout membership, and I've put my code below as well for an extra 5% off. Now obviously this setup is double Forest defence, so you could spread your risk around by going Vicario, or if you prefer to double up on Everton or Bournemouth or maybe someone else, that's perfectly fine as well. The clean sheet odds are pretty tight this week. One thing I should say, while Newcastle's defence has been unbelievable, they've not been banging in the goals, so I think Raya is also a good shout in net. So in midfield, it's Kudus, Semenyo, Bruno, Reinders and Foden. So yeah, it's double City midfield, Reinders and Foden. I'm recording this before their League Cup game on Wednesday, where I'm expecting a lot of rotation and probably quite a few rested players for City before they start against Burnley, which hopefully includes Reinders and Foden. Reinders, in fairness, has got incredible fitness. Like, he's one of those players you're rarely going to see coming off early, generally gets 90 minutes. There is also Doku, of course, who has looked sharp recently, but I'd favour Foden if I was picking between the 2. If it wasn't completely obvious, Haaland's the 3rd attacker I've gone for. If you're free hitting this week, are you going triple attack or are you including Donnarumma or Vardy? Wolves sit rock bottom of the Premier League table, the only team yet to pick up a point after 5 losses on the bounce, so a Spurs attacker just makes perfect sense. And I've opted for Kudus, but I think Xavi Simons also works nicely. 1.65 expected goal involvement this season, 5 shots in the box. He's quickly cemented himself as a key player for Spurs. Semenyo's had more price rises than attacking returns. 7.7 million is crazy when he started at 7 mil. I think he's actually nearing a price point where it's getting debatable whether he's worth the money or not. He's not going to finish the season on 38 goal involvements, which is his current pace. But yeah, after 5 game weeks, his underlying numbers are among the best still. And given Palmer's injury, on a free hit or a wildcard, he's much easier to fit in. Without his penalty, he's still got 2.21 non-penalty expected goal involvement, which places him 5th highest in the league, 3rd highest among midfielders. Reading your comments, I know he's a divisive pick, but it's Bruno Fernandes. I've not been impressed by Brentford so far. They've conceded 10 goals, only Wolves and West Ham have conceded more. Let's not forget as well, Bruno is one missed penalty away from being the 2nd top scorer midfielder, assuming that he would have gotten some bonus, which I recall he would have if he'd scored that pen. I'll tell you one player missing here that could be worth a look as well, Saka. Madueke has just been reported this morning sidelined for around 2 months with a knee injury, and we saw Saka's return last match against City, so I think he'll start against Newcastle. It might be slightly too rushed for Arteta. He might have wanted to take him off the bench one more time, but his hand could be forced. I'm keeping Saka at the back of my head personally on the wildcard as well, and how to potentially get to him later if it looks worth it. Gameweek 10 and 11, Arsenal face Burnley and Sunderland back to back. So up front it's Haaland and João Pedro. It sounds like Palmer might be set to miss some games. Maresca mentioned possible surgery today, or at least he said, to quote him, "The medical team only mentioned surgery to me today." So I think actually despite Enzo taking the last one, João Pedro's got a very good chance of being on penalty still, and it could be for a little while. He's playing home against his old club Brighton as well. Last season in the same fixture, Chelsea put 4 past them in the first half. All 4 are actually Palmer's goals. I think if Palmer does end up being out for a while, Enzo also becomes a really interesting option. His role could be slightly different. And if you look at Gameweek 2 and 3, with no Palmer, his average position was looking different. And both games he got 1 goal, 1 assist. It's a small sample size of course, but between him and João Pedro, if you were to double up on a wildcard, you've got 100% guaranteed penalty share one way or another. Though as I say, I personally expect João Pedro to take the next one. And lastly Haaland. Not much needs to be said here. You'll have well over 1 million transfers in by the deadline. Probably 1.5 million even. Nothing's a given in FPL though, I will caveat that. Like, who remembers last season, Southampton home? He did score in fairness that game, but he had his 2nd highest XG ever in a Prem game. And he could have had 4 or 5 goals honestly, but it just didn't happen. I triple captained him that week and didn't go that great really. Did get 6 points or 18 as triple, but should have been more. He'll almost certainly get rested in the League Cup as well before the Burnley game. They should be able to progress with a rotated team. So the bench is Darlow, Pedro Porro, Strand Larsen and Rodon. With only 1 premium, it is really easy to have all the players you want and spread the money around, so we even got quite a bit of money on the bench. What about a 2 premium draft though? I wouldn't rip a free hit up just to fit Saka in, but what about Salah? I suspect some of you will be wondering whether a Salah and Haaland free hit is possible, so I've put one together this morning as well as a little bonus. It's a 4-5-1 formation to make it work, and the team is Sells, Tarkowski, Williams, Vardiol, Senesi, Semenyo, Dewsbury Hall, Reinders, Bruno, Salah and Haaland. So the bench is Dubravka, Romero, Gue and Neve, and we're sacrificing Foden and we're sacrificing João Pedro basically. It's a much lighter bench, but it does squeeze in both Salah and Haaland. Salah's 58% owned, Haaland's 43% owned. Have a guess how many owned both as of last game week? Just 16%, so that in itself is a low ownership combination relatively speaking. Ultimately points to what matter though, not being differential. My preference is the no Salah draft and just spread the money around. Which one do you prefer? Thanks as always for watching. As I say, my wildcard is active, so make sure you subscribe to see my draft on Wednesday. See you soon for the next one.